Hello and welcome to the Navigational Trip Planning and Applied Coastal Geography presentation for Southbourne Canoe Club. This presentation was a presentation we delivered a few weeks ago at our in-person lecture in Hainsbury Head Centre. I am Anatole Myint and I'll be delivering this presentation today, and it's the start of our first theory series we will be doing with Southbourne Canoe Club. So, quick introduction of who I am. I am a sea kayak leader and shelter water coach who operates within Southbourne Canoe Club and among a few companies on the south coast. I've been in Watersports for over 10 years now, and I have a passion to help teach and strive to help people at Southbourne Canoe Club learn and develop their skills, starting with this in essential navigation for sea kayaking. So, quick agenda for this video. This presentation is what we used in the evening, so it has exactly as all the activities or the exercises. So feel free at any point to pause the video, just have a go at them, and then unpause it and carry on. So we'll go over a quick overview about why we plan in the first place and important influences to planning, where information can be found, what's relevant to us as sea kayakers, have a quick look at the traditional methods. Obviously, as I said, we'll have a go, but it's up to you to have a go since we're on video. We'll have a look at the flashy up-to-date methods, so the apps and what we can get on our phones. Of course, the weather, the tides. We'll look at doing a full day trip plan, and then there's a few bits of geography and sciencey stuff that is completely optional if you want to watch it. You can skip over that, of course, if you want to. So why do we plan? So it's to essentially avoid the unexpected. It makes it much easier with our trip. We can inform others of our decisions before we make them, and it's basically just there to make everything run really, really smoothly. It's basically the oil to your car. So what do we plan? This isn't a group activity. You can pause the video now, try and list down a few bullet points in your head, try and get all out, any ideas you have, as ridiculous as it seems, and then unpause the video once you're done. So we'll go over a few that I have deemed useful and a few which aren't useful. So if you have any that you think might be not useful, write them down as well. So first of all, entries to water. So access points are very, very important. So where we're getting on, and that includes the type of beach you're launching from, where it's road accessible, and also do parking, because obviously parking is quite expensive if you're there for a whole day. The tide, so what I was doing, the high tide, the low tide, your access points, so even along your route you want to have exit points, say half down paddle, or you might have every 2 miles you have an exit point, which is probably the standard you go for a club, and also where you want to end up. The sun, so how intense it is, whether you use sun cream or not, you use a hat, how much water you will need to bring. The current direction, very important. We'll look at tidal streams in a bit. The nearest hospital, very, very important. You never know what might happen. So it's good to have this in mind. Nearest A&E department. Your wind, so the wind direction and speed has a big effect on your paddling. The swell size or the direction of the waves is good. Emergency contacts, and you want to have these emergency contacts land-based. If underwater view, it's not going to do anything. And it's a good idea to share a version of your plan with these emergency contacts so they know exactly what's going on. If you don't return back on time, they can come out looking for you, or they can contact the emergency service. The wave period, so the amount of time between waves is very important, so it affects how easy it is for you to land and launch. If there's a very small wave period or a short wave period, it means that there's going to be lots of waves coming in a small time frame, and that's quite hard to launch and land from. It's good to keep in mind, and it could end up you cancel a panel that day if you go with beginners. And this was a trick question, because the more information you know, the better, and you could go completely overboard and you spend a whole night planning, but at least you know everything about where you're going. Of course, for us, planning quickly for a club trip, you probably want to spend a maximum of about 2 to 3 hours to get a good quality plan down. Cool, so a quick look then for navigational basics. So there are 3 norths which we refer to. We have magnetic north, true north, and map/grid north. So magnetic north is the direction that your company faces. Your little handheld compass or compass you have on the end of your boat. and that is dictated by Earth's geomagnetic field and the charged particles from the sun. So this moves at an approximate rate of 55 kilometers per year. This is a caption from Google, which is why it's in quotation marks. And as you can see on the picture that I've also obtained from Google, you have true north, which is completely up on the globe, and magnetic north, which is off to the side slightly. And that angle there is a variation which is labelled nicely for you. So if you're doing a long trip or you're doing it in a different part of the world, variation is something you probably have to take into consideration when you are planning your trip. So it affects your bearings if you're going to use bearings, which is more for open water crossings, but it's useful to know even with a coastal trip. So as I said, true north is direction towards the geographical North Pole, so I put a little stick down, and that's good to know because all your maps that's grid north is the north. They're referring to the true north, so your map should be orientated towards the north, and then the map becomes true, and you can use that to relate to the geography that's around you. So what this link is here, and we opened up in our in-person lecture. Rich found this out on I think it's Daily Telegraph or something like that, and what's happening at the moment in this year, so 2022, is that all the norths are aligning. So true north and magnetic north, you remember the variants, they're actually aligning, so they are direct on top of each other. And this means there's zero variation. So it means it's very, very easy to plan a trip now, because you don't need to worry about adding or minusing off any degrees from your north. So traditional navigation, so this would be more to do with a longer trip plan. This is a very useful skill to have because you can go back to tidal charts, the IMRO charts or the Admiralty charts, and you can plan a course using what we have here, Portland Course Plotter, or the pointy things I've called them, dividers. And as you probably noticed, it looks like a compass. It's not a compass. You can use it to get a bearing like you would do with a compass, but it's not a compass in the sense it doesn't give you a magnetic north. So you'd use this, and we'll go through bearings in greater detail in another talk. You use this to obtain your directional bearing and measure out your distance using dividers along the latitude scale, so along the side going up and down to find your distance. It's very accurate, it's a very useful way of doing it, and you can photocopy the map you write this stuff on, print it off and laminate it and take it with you on the trip, and this is why there's a big advantage in this. So what to avoid, a few top tips. So measuring distance, like I said, you use a latitude scale, and if you have a look at our diagram on here, which is from Google again, you'll see that the latitude scale is marked and latitude is in with yellow lines, and they're going around the Earth. The reason we don't use a longitude scale is if you follow the red lines, you'll find that they get closer and closer together if you go to the North Pole, or closer and closer together if you go to the South Pole. This means that it changes. There's no standard distance between them. So we always use latitude because there's a constant rate, constant distance between the latitude lines, and therefore it's the most accurate way to measure distance. If you use longitude, it'll be different distance and longitude from the more north you are or the more south you are. So 1 degree of latitude equals 60 minutes, or 60 apostrophe. 1 minute equals 60 seconds, and 1 minute of latitude equals 1 sea mile. And we use tenths of a minute, so not seconds. So we have, for example, 50 degrees, 17 minutes dot or 0.4 north. And this is how you read your coordinates if you were saying it to the Coast Guard, or if you were writing this down on your plan. So this is where we're going to have a go. So if you want to pause the video, if you're very used to navigation, or you think you've got this in the bag, have a go at this task here. I want you to plan a 12.5 nautical mile trip, be within 2 miles of the coast at all times, record your start and end point, and measure your course alterations as you go. So you should come out with a rolling roads plan, if you're familiar with that, or tabular format. For those of you which haven't done that much navigation before, not that confident, I just want you to find your start and end point. Write down your coordinates to practice getting it. We generally say the plane goes along the runway before it takes off, so you find along the map, you find that bearing first, your You go along the map and you find that coordinate first, and then you go up the map or down the map, and that's the second coordinate you write down. So longitude, then latitude. And then I want you to then try and find a headland or find a buoy or a point, and I want you to try and take a bearing off of that to another point on the map. If you don't have an inroad chart, just print one off from Google. Absolutely fine, but have a go. Cool, so hopefully you've had a go at that. If not, no worries at all. Here is the new navigation stuff, all the flashy stuff. This is new apps which have been developed, and it makes your life so much easier. So first of all, we have Navionics, and this is a app which is partnered with Garmin, and these two have created a really useful app in terms of it updates itself all the time, so there's no need to update your maps with notice to mariners, and you can create a plan in it really easily, including putting in your boat draft if you're on a major vessel, or for us as kayakers, probably like 0.3 meters, because you can paddle nearly in anything, and it can tell you your time and the speed you're going to use. So very useful. Inroad navigational app, again, gives you very good inroad charts, although you have to pay for some of them, but good detail. Obey Safe Tracks allows you to write a plan and put your emergency contacts on there. So say if you got into emergency, you can press the emergency button on Safe Tracks, and it will immediately send your location and send distress to emergency services and your emergency contacts. It allows you to share your plan as well, which is very useful. So obviously the cons of these kind of things is your phone could run out of data. You might run out of service, or you could lose your phone. Worst comes to worst, we have had a few instances where people have had their phones washed out to sea. Cool. So on to weather. So what do we need to know? First of all, as we said before, the wind and the sun, very useful to know. So wind direction, wind speed. The sun in terms of how hot it is, if there's lots of cloud cover. This all affects what you bring with you in your equipment list, which we'll cover in another lecture. And also it affects how long you probably will paddle for. Where can we find this? So we can use this in news, you can run it on TV, you can use an app on your phone, you can do websites, stuff like Willy Weather, Wind Guru, Wind Finder. All of these apps are very useful. Magic Seaweed is one as well. Or even a Met Office. So if you go into Google, type your location, type weather, type the day you want, you'll find a forecast very quickly. So we know this, as I said to you, it affects your equipment list, affects how long you paddle for, and also helps you get mentally prepared for the day, because kayaking and much water sports are a mental game. Cool, so a very quick practice here. If you want to pause the video, I want you to find tomorrow's full forecast. So I want you to find all the things I've just listed. Maybe try and find 3 different websites or 3 different apps and compare them, because they often do contrast each other. You can choose any location you want. In this photo here, which I've taken, you've got Old Harry Rocks in the background, so why don't you try using that and see how much it contrasts. So hopefully you should have found a wind speed and direction, whether it's sunny or rainy, and whether it's going to change or not, and that's something you should definitely consider putting in. Having the full hours worth of your trip in the plan of your weather changing is very useful, as well as having about 2 or 3 hours before and after your plan, just in case you're out longer than you expect, or you get there early and just want to paddle. So the Beaufort scale, you've probably heard of this in your GCSE geography. If you haven't done GCSE geography, you should have done. You might remember it from Key Stage 3. So this is a quick look at what the sea will look like for different forces. We've got force 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 11. And you've got the wind speeds written on there as well, which hopefully you can see nice and clearly. So have a quick look over this. It's not very accurate, because when you're in a kayak, waves look very different. And for the force 6 wind you can see on there, it looks more like a force 7 that you've got on the picture when you're actually in a kayak. And you'll quickly find that around 3 plus meters of swell or wave height will be over your head. And this is good to keep in mind, especially if you just look at it on the forecast on your app. You want to know where you're going to be uncomfortable. And the more experience you get paddling, the more comfortable you'll be. But ideally, you probably won't be going out in more than a force 6. Cool. This is where we had our break time. That's the picture of a sloth. And on to tides. So we all knew it's going to come at some point. So tides, we got a quick tide to go off, have a look at now. You've got high tide, you've got low tide, and you've got the time on the x-axis, and on the y-axis going up, you've got the tidal height. So tides affect tidal streams, and tidal streams is water rushing from one place to another, affected by the gravitational force of the moon on the sun. And there are three types of tides. So you have semi-diurnal, diurnal and mixed, and these are cycles. So semi-diurnal is 2 cycles per day, like shown in our graph. Diurnal is 1 cycle a day. Mixed is 2 cycles, which is significantly different. So we can find this out from those weather apps I've already gone through, and from my tide times or in-read tidal planets, one I use. Or anyway, like I said before on Google, you put in your location, put your day in, and you put tides. So we have springs and neaps, which looks like this. So this is probably where at some point we've all been a bit confused. And luckily on this picture it's very useful. So springs is effectively when you have a linear sun and moon. So the Earth being in the middle, and the sun's one side and the moon's the other side, or the sun and moon are both on the same side in an eclipse. So all this means is that the water's been dragged around the Earth, and if you have a look at the blue around our Earth there, you can see there's not very much on the sides where the moon and the sun aren't there. And that's because they're literally being dragged. It's like if you had a kind of elasticy ball. You dragged it, your two sides pull out, and the middle bit would squeeze in towards the centre. It's the same concept. Or if we look at our neap tides, where they are at right angles to each other, the sun and the moon, you can see that even on where the sun and the moon, on the side they're not on, there's still a bit of water there. And this is because there's not a direct pull, so it's slightly off, it's not completely evenly pulled. And therefore there's less range on the neap tide than on the spring. So spring tides have a higher high tide and a lower low tide, and neaps have a lower high tide and a higher low tide. This is where it gets confusing. But the concept, once you got it, is very easy to understand. So this is one of the more traditional methods of tidal planning, as you can see. If you're interested in this, we will be doing another lecture on this topic. But this is just to have a quick look and see how mathematical it can get. So if you want to pause the video, have a quick look, zoom in, by all means. So this is a map showing the cycles around the world. As you can see, us in the UK, we're completely surrounded by semi-diurnal tides, which makes it nice and easy, 2 cycles a day. Diurnal tides are found in the yellow sections and mixed tides in the red. So it's good to research before you go somewhere what kind of tides you're going to be facing. So, as you probably guessed, we want you to have a go at finding tomorrow's tides for a location. Try and compare different apps, because sometimes there is variation, although they are predicted year in ahead, so there shouldn't be too much. So, wind against tide is what we're going to look at now. Just a quick discussion about it, because we'll have another lecture specifically on this. So wind against tide, you can imagine, is something you want to watch out for, because wind against the surface of the water is what creates our waves. And the more friction or the more wind there is against a moving conveyor belt of tide, the bigger the waves are, the messier our sea will be. And obviously we care about this because we'll be right on top of that. So if you're seasick, this is what you should watch out for. Our types of plans. So we have traditional, for instance, maps we draw on the route and weather tables. So in our first picture on the PowerPoint, you can see they've drawn on a line of where they're heading. You can see the time they're written on there, the bearing they should be going, which is bearing true, and the time they predict to get there. This kind of method is really useful if you want to print out a map and then you can laminate it. It's also useful to do this on OS maps, because OS maps give a really nice detailed version of the topography of the land which is next to you. And since we're coastal paddling, or we assume you're coastal paddling in this presentation, you'll be next to this coast, you can see what you're looking at. Next we have is a rolling road, and this is basically a flowchart. And this is a really useful one because it's a very step-by-step plan, what you should see to your left, what you should see to your right. Or you could just have bearing, go this direction, bearing to go this direction. You should be able to see this. You should be able to see this headland. You should be able to see this buoy to your right. It's this kind of plan. And effectively, this is probably one of the best plans because it's something you can hand to someone who's not kayaking or doesn't know much about Watersports, and they'll be able to understand exactly what's going on. This is a more traditional, very blurry version of a plan, tabular format. It has coordinates on there, it has your bearings, has your speed, has your distance between coordinates. This is more for motorcraft, but it's useful to have this kind of plan because it has an extra amount of detail which could be necessary to have if you get lost, or if you need to know a bit more about the area that you're paddling in whilst you're en route. I've also written down our way wet notes, or just wet notes, because it's basically having a notebook or paper you can write on, which when you have in the water, it won't disintegrate. And this is quite useful because having wet notes on you, despite even having a plan, if you have a casualty on the water, you can make notes for the casualty, and that bit of paper or bit of wet notes will travel with them in the ambulance as they go to hospital. So useful to have all around. Again, this is another drawn on a map with a few different lines. And then we have a screen capture from Navionics, and this is a plan or example of a plan you can use. You can use Navionics to create. As you can see, it kind of does the route for you, although you can do it manually as well. And this one is REA Safe Tracks, where it shows you can put in the time you're leaving, the estimated time, the trip progress you think you're going to make, and number of people with you. So when you press that emergency button, all of this information goes straight to the Coast Guard. Cool, so I want you guys to select a plan now. It doesn't matter which one you go for, just have a go at making a day trip plan. Try and include some navigational stuff we used in the beginning, a few slides, and just have a go. The aim of this is that you have a plan which you can look at with no memory of what you're doing, and know exactly where you're going and what you need to do. Or someone who's not paddling or someone who's not leading can pick up the plan and just take off with it and know what they're doing. And the idea of this is that if you become the casualty or you're unable to lead, you can pass on that plan to someone else, so your group aren't stranded. Because if you look at our mnemonic, you have self, team, victim, and equipment. So your team will come second after you, of course, but you do want to take care of them still. Cool, so I hope you had a go at that. If not, then pause the video and have a go now. And now we'll do a bit of geography. So the wave types, and why is this important to us? So we have our two main types, destructive and constructive. Destructive have a stronger backwash than the swash, and the backwash is the bottom of the wave which sucks material out to sea, and the swash is the top bit which dumps it. And destructive waves create steep beaches, and this is important for us. So if we had a fiberglass boat or we had beginners, steep beaches are quite terrifying for beginners to launch from, because you're basically straight into a sail launch or sliding straight down. And you might want to consider your launching techniques. Constructive have a stronger swash, gets depositing material and creates nice long sloping beaches such as the ones the Old Harry Rocks near Poole. The other side is definitely destructive. So as you can see on here, they have a long wavelength, so there's a low frequency. This is really useful to know because it makes it easier for you to launch when there is less waves coming per minute. And as you can see on here, strong swash, weak backwash, and nice long sloping beach. And also what's really useful to highlight here is it gains very little height, which is again much better for beginners. Our destructive waves, which you probably want to watch out for. Short wavelength and a high frequency means lots of waves per minute. Have a steep wave front, so it can be quite daunting. I remember I have a memory of me launching for one of the first times, Hainsbury Head Beach, and the wave working its way up towards my face and the boat smacking me in the face. Don't paddle in the sea for a good few months after that. Has a weak swash but a very strong backwash, so you can definitely get sucked into the sea quite easily there. And it's just something to keep in mind for your launching plan. So, wave erosion and rock types as well. So longshore drift. So if you remember any of your geography, which I hope you do, this means that the waves will be coming at a slight angle to the beach. We've got a nice diagram there on picture number 3 at the bottom. This is also useful to know because if you have an incident whilst you're launching, you can then expect your paddlers to be going down the beach away from you, and you can preempt this and put helpers in the sea or further down the beach just in case this happens. Your types of beach we've just gone over affects your launching procedures. So as you can see in the top right, we have Clare and Rich launching down a quite steep beach there. I believe this is Old Harry or the Isle of Wight, one of the two. And and Rich has gone for a helping hand on the back, and he's helped do a seal launch. And they've chosen a time where the wave is just broken. And you've chosen this because the waves are quite big, and they'd be quite, as we said before, a large wave front. And you don't want to be launching straight into that. Your cliff faces. Cliff faces are very important to look at. Your type of rock. And if they are prone to collapsing, it's probably a good idea to keep away from the base of them. Helmets on at all times. And as we know, Jurassic Coast has a history of collapsing every few years, or less than that. More frequently in less than a few years. And this is all to do with the erosion, the wind, and the water erosion, the rock type. And you've got to have this in your plan. You've got to have this in your risk assessment. And this is actually a thing to be adding on, just to keep in mind as you take your paddlers out. So there's so much more to learn, really, and it's a quick plug for other videos we want to make and other lectures. We've got catabolic winds and flows and anabolic winds there as well. We want to do equipment talks. We want to go over some more Met Office stuff, so the weather fronts and synoptic charts. And this is basically our vision for the future. We want to do safety and rescue theory, plus our practical sessions in the club. We want to do some focus exercises, so workout plans for people, more navigational stuff. So, for example, I'll just explain the scouting for storms. What I meant there is I want to be able to get you guys to identify cloud types and be like, oh, there's a storm coming. Very useful to know. And we want to get some specific skill sessions in which are scenario based, not just our generic here's how you go in a straight line, more of here's how you paddle in a force 4 with a wave swell of 2 meters. We want to go over some one-to-one sessions as well, which we think we can give you some development plans which will help you as a paddler. So it means us coming up for paddle with you and then giving you some advice as we go, writing out a session plan for you, something you can go away and work on by yourself. So it was also, of course, we want to give the BC some credit here. So we have CNTP, so Coastal Navigation Tidal Planning. Of course, we definitely recommend for sea kayakers. FSRT, recommend for all foundation safety rescue training. And then, of course, our Sea Kayak Personal Performance Awards. And there's so much more to look at. Featuring this nice photo of me when I was younger, probably starting out. And if you have a slightly different focus where you want to work on, there's marine life, pollution, we can cover water currents dynamics, thermoclines, formations for storms, how we can protect our marine environment or keep our waterways clear. There's so much more we can do. There's a few photos I've captured whilst paddling around and one of me looking like a beaver as well near Ifit Bridge. I'm studying ocean sciences at the moment, so I'd love to share some of my knowledge on that with you. But thank you to everyone that appeared in the photos. You've done a great job. And also thank you for listening. And if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to either comment or email me, or get in touch via the club, or please come and join our club or come join a paddle. All very appreciated. And hopefully this video has been helpful for you today. Cool. Well, thank you very much. This has been Technic Watersport Discovery Channel. And it'd be great for you guys to leave a like and a comment or either subscribe because it's quite a new channel and we'd love to get this up and running. But thank you very much, guys, and hopefully you see you at paddle soon. Hope you found that video useful. This is a new channel, so if you don't mind hitting the like and subscribe, it'd be really useful. Hopefully we'll release some more content soon, so I hope to see you on the next video. And thank you for listening to Technic Watersport Discovery.